Greetings. I am the Throwback Scholar. Welcome to my story zone. My grandma was born. My grandma on my mother's side was born in 1922 in the American South. During the 1980s, she was a substitute teacher and would always give me advice about a myriad of topics, ranging from proper eating manners to carrying a meaningful and respectful conversation with people. During my childhood in the late 90s to the early 2000s, I would spend time at my grandma's house, whether it was being dropped off from school or a regular visit to her house. Those were some of my best and cherished memories. During all these events, I was 6 or 7 years old, and all I cared about doing was doing my schoolwork and reading my favorite comics. But one thing that was more fun than reading comics was going to my grandma's house to watch cartoons with her. For instance, the first cartoon that I watched with her was the 1940s Superman cartoon. Prior to watching the cartoon with my grandma, I watched the Superman cartoon on a 1,000 cartoon videotape that my parents bought me. When I think about this cartoon, I think about my watching that cartoon with my parents and watching it with my grandmother. So as a result, when I think about this cartoon, I get double nostalgia uh, while watching it. My grandma drove my late grandfather's 1988 Buick station wagon. This led me to naming my grandma on my mom's side the grandma with the station wagon. My grandma with the station wagon. After school ended for the day, my older cousin on my dad's side would pick me up and drop me off at my grandma's house. I knew the second I saw my grandma waiting for me in front of her house gates that I would be treated to some mouth-watering salmon cakes or a soul food platter with some Czech orange soda. I would eat all of the delicious food while sitting on her deluxe Lazy Boy recliner. And I would watch tons of cartoons and shows on her 1971 Zenith TV. After eating my grandma's delicious soul food, I would scoot around the block on a scooter from the 80s. Thinking back, I think it was that scooter was from my older cousins on my mom's side. I used to do pop. I used to do pop wheelies and that thing. Little tricks here and there. It was really fun. It was a really good scooter. But one day I was like, scooting on it, and it broke. And the rust, because it was an older scooter, obviously, and the rust went through with it. But then I found out where to fix it. I got some duct tape and WD-40 and fused it together, and it worked. It worked for a long time. While doing while doing some research for this video, I found out that scooter's brand was Mongoose, and the scooter I had was called the Mini Scoot. I didn't know it as a kid. I used to call it the Mega Scooter because I was a fan. I was a fan, and I used to watch the '90s Mega Man cartoon. Soon after scooting around my grandma's block, I would soon go back inside and watch cartoons with my grandma. These cartoons included Hanna-Barbera classics, ranging from Yogi Bear to the Flintstones. After watching these cartoons, my grandma would talk to me and reinforce moral advice that my parents taught me. For instance, while watching the classic cartoon Dexter's Lab or Dexter's Laboratory, she would tell me to use my intellect for good intentions, and deflect any persuasions towards using my intellect for nefarious reasons. For instance, she would discuss about the great scientists throughout history. These scientists that she would talk about would be Albert Einstein, George Washington Carver, and Carl Sagan. She informed me that these men use their high intellect to help the world. These intellect talks that I would have with my grandma would inspire me during my college and university years to research the works from scientists and engineers such as Dr. Richard Feynman and Jerry Lawson. I will talk about Jerry Lawson in a future video of mine. Additionally, while watching the cartoon history show Toonheads and my grandma, she would tell me how it was watching cartoons in theater, and how the acoustics were, how interesting it was to watch a cartoon in theater, and how that would enhance the overall experience of watching cartoons. Another activity I would do at my grandma's house was to play games on my older cousin's PlayStation. While my cousin attended university, he stayed with my grandma, and he brought his PlayStation 1 with him. Now, he had games that a kid couldn't play, like Driver or Metal Gear Solid, but my cousin looked out for me, and the games he allowed me to play were Crash Bandicoot 1, 2, Warped, and Crash Team Racing. My favorite of the games were Crash Bandicoot 2 and 3, or Warped, because if I can recall it right, 2 and 3 worked better with the DualShock controllers, and it felt for me at least it felt easier for me to play with the DualShock rather than the D-pad on the controller for the PS1, and I figured I enjoyed 1 and 2 for that reason. I mean 2 and 3 for that reason. 1 was fun too, but I think if memory serves me right, I don't think the DualShocks work well for Crash Bandicoot 1 as well as it worked with 2 and Warped. Additionally, I even though I played Mario Kart 64 prior to playing Crash Team Racing, for me, Crash Team Racing felt more fun than Mario 64, but Mario 64 is more fun with friends. They're both good games. Mario Kart 64 is fun, but if you go play a game by yourself, Crash Team Racing, for me, was more fun. So I guess Mario Kart 64 is more fun with friends, but Crash Team Racing is more fun by yourself. If that makes sense. After finishing my school homework, I would play on my cousin's PlayStation while he was studying at the local library, and sometimes, at the university library, and sometimes he would even play with me. I would play Tekken. I want to Tekken 2. I gotta think now, cause I know it was a fighting game. I think it was Tekken 2, and I for some reason I could never master that game as a kid. I always wanted to play like platformers or racing games because they were like more, for me, easy to get into. I mean, now I like fighting games now, but when I was a kid, I figured it was too complex. And as you would see with my math story, I like things simple sometimes, but he would play Tekken with me. He would play Crash Team Racing with me. It was fun. He would let me play Driver 1 and 2, but it's not a really game for kids. But still, it was fun. It was fun playing my older cousin with those games. Very fun games. The final story for today's video will discuss my favorite anime, Dragon Ball. Now, Dragon Ball Z, that's for part 2, but Dragon Ball, Kid Goku and them. This story will coincide with my grandma's Never Give Up story, or Persevere story. During my childhood, I didn't like math, as we all know. But math, you gotta do it. But if you don't have to, or use a calculator, But I digress. But during my childhood, I didn't like math because, from what I can recall, it was overly complex for the sake of being overly complex. But while watching the Dragon Ball episode Beware of Robot at my grandma's house, my grandma told me, see how Kid Goku keeps fighting against a robot? He didn't give up. What you have to do is visualize math like battling that robot, and master and defeat it on your terms. Now, during that time, I had to do like a math test. I did like math, but when I visualized like it was a math test like times tables, and when I visualized the times table as that robot that Kid Goku was fighting, I passed that test. If memory serves me right, I think I earned a 95% on that test. But yeah, when I visualized that test, those math the math test as a robot to defeat, in a similar vein as Kid Goku versus that pirate robot, I realized I can do this. And from that moment on, I applied that advice to not only math, but into other places into my life. For example, when I was a teenager, I really wanted to, I started playing guitar. And at first, I wasn't doing that good. But then suddenly, my brain said, "You can do this, man." And remember that story from your grandma. And suddenly, I just started learning it, and I became better at it. And whether that was in academics or music, my grandma's advice helped me to persevere despite life's challenges. Thank you for watching my video. Have a great day or evening.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.